The house was completely silent when Emma brought her newborn son Liam home for the very first time. Her husband was still at work, her parents were away on a trip, and the only one waiting at the door to greet them was Kiro, her 3-year-old white husky. Now, Kiro had always been a gentle dog, but he was also incredibly energetic, playful, and sometimes a little stubborn. Emma couldn't help but worry that he might be too excited, too boisterous around a fragile newborn. She held Liam just a little bit tighter as she stepped inside, her heart pounding with a mix of joy and anxiety. The moment they entered, Kiro froze. His piercing, icy blue eyes widened and his big, fluffy tail stopped wagging midair. He tilted his head, his gaze fixed on the small, precious bundle wrapped in a soft, sky-blue blanket. Emma knelt down and whispered, "Easy, boy." "This is Liam." Kiro approached slowly, cautiously. He lowered his head until his wet nose was just a few centimeters from the baby. He took a long sniff, blinked once, and then did something that melted Emma's heart. He very gently placed his head right beside Liam's tiny feet. It was as if he was saying, "I understand, I get it, and I will protect him." That was the first moment Emma truly felt a wave of relief wash over her. She let out a breath she didn't even realize she was holding and smiled. In the weeks that followed, something extraordinary began to happen. Every single morning without fail, Kiro would wake up before Emma and lie quietly beside Liam's crib. He'd await there patiently until she came into the room to lift the baby for his morning feeding. And whenever Liam cried, Kiro was always the first one to come running. He'd whine softly, as if in sympathy, and nudge the crib gently with his nose, trying to comfort the baby in his own way. But the moment that truly etched itself into Emma's soul happened on a cold evening in early winter. Liam had fallen asleep on his little playmat in the middle of the living room. Emma was in the kitchen, just a few feet away, preparing his bottles for the night. Suddenly, she heard Kiro scratching at the floor, pacing back and forth with an unusual sense of urgency. "Kiro? What is it, boy?" she called out, a little annoyed. But Kiro let out a low, worried howl, a sound Emma had never heard from him before. He then sprinted back toward Liam, looked back at her, and then ran toward Liam again, his eyes wide with panic. Emma's heart leaped into her throat. She dropped everything and rushed forward. When she reached the playmat, she saw it. Liam's face was turning a frightening shade of red. He was breathing, but it was shallow and strained. In his sleep, he had twisted and turned, and his blanket had somehow wrapped itself tightly around his tiny neck. Emma's hands shook uncontrollably as she quickly and carefully freed him. He took a deep, gasping breath, and the color slowly returned to his cheeks. Tears streamed down her face as she scooped him into her arms, holding him close. She looked at Kiro, who was now sitting right beside them. "Thank you, oh my God, Kiro. Thank you," she sobbed. Kiro just sat there, his nose touching Liam's cheek, watching intently until the baby's breathing returned to a calm, steady rhythm. From that day forward, Emma no longer saw Kiro as just a pet. He wasn't just a family dog. He was a guardian. A silent, gentle protector with a heart that seemed even bigger and more profound than his beautiful blue eyes. Their bond became absolutely unbreakable. When Liam learned to roll over, Kiro would position himself beside him, acting as a furry, living barrier to make sure he wouldn't roll off the mat or into furniture. When Liam began to crawl, Kiro became his guide. He would move slowly across the house, letting the baby follow him like a little explorer trailing behind a fluffy, white leader. And whenever Liam cried, Kiro's response changed. He no longer whined or panicked. He would simply lie down beside him and place a comforting paw near the baby's hand, a silent gesture of solidarity and comfort. One afternoon, Emma walked into the living room to find them asleep together. Liam was curled up into Kiro's warm, soft fur, and Kiro had his head resting protectively over the baby's legs. It was a scene so pure, so peaceful, that she froze in the doorway, just taking it all in, burning the image into her memory. But the most emotional moment of all happened on Liam's first birthday. The backyard was filled with balloons, family had gathered from all over, and soft music was playing. Liam sat on a blanket in the grass as everyone gathered around to sing Happy Birthday. Suddenly, a loud, sharp popping sound echoed through the neighborhood. Someone nearby had set off a firecracker way too close for comfort. Liam jumped, startled, and his face immediately crumpled as he began to cry, scared by the sudden noise. But before Emma or anyone else could even take a step toward him, Kiro was already there. In a single fluid motion, he moved to place his entire body gently around Liam, shielding him like a living fortress. His fur wrapped around the baby's tiny shoulders, and he rested his head protectively near Liam's chest. The entire yard fell silent. Everyone just watched, mesmerized. Kiro wasn't scared. He wasn't confused, he was doing his job. He was protecting the child he had chosen as his own from the very beginning. Emma felt a tear roll down her cheek as she whispered, "Kiro, you're his guardian angel." Years later, Liam would grow up with the unshakable belief that the very first friend he ever had in his life wasn't another child, but a gentle, loyal white husky with kind blue eyes. He would learn to walk by holding onto Kiro's thick fur for balance. He would whisper all his secrets into Kiro's patient ears long before he could even form complete sentences. And Kiro, ever patient, ever loyal, would stay by his side through every single milestone, big and small. Because for Kiro, this wasn't just a family he lived with. This was his purpose. This was his duty. This was his heart. And for Liam, it was the purest, most unconditional form of love he would ever know. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more stories that celebrate the incredible bond between humans and animals. We'll see you in the next one.